Hey everybody, and welcome to Every Book All at Once, week 2. So, this is a project in which I will be reading every book on what I consider my physical TBR all at once until I have nothing left. The project has started. Week 1, I had the goal to start all of my books, which has been the case with the exception of one book which is a read along book that I will be tackling in the month of September, so I felt like it was a decent enough reason for me to not include it in the project thus far. So we are moving into week 3, week 2. And thanks to the suggestion of Natalie, I have a goal of getting 5 of my current reads to the midway points. Now, most of the books I'm currently reading, I am under 10% into because basically all I did was read a chapter in them for last week's goal. So this week we will not be making progress in every single book probably on my TBR because I will be focusing on a few of them to get them to the midway points. Now, at this point in time, we are Tuesday evening. I do have one book that's already there and one book that's pretty close to it. So the one book that's already there is Gold by Raven Kennedy. I got to like the 49% mark on that in week 1, and so I'm now somewhere in the 50% mark. And so I'm now somewhere over the 50% mark in that one. That is one that I'm steadily making progress in reading a little bit here and there every day, more or less. So that one I expect by the end of this week to be more or less like the 75% mark, maybe even. But in any case, it will go over the 50% mark. And then potentially I can even finish it still within the month of August. Now, the second book that is the closest to being to the midway point is the Saturday Morning Run Club, because the Saturday Morning Park Run. I've been calling that book by the wrong title every single time. But so the Saturday Morning Park Run I am listening to on my commute to work. It is the only book that is actually not on my physical TBR, and that book is very close to the 50% mark. Even though it is not technically part of this project, I am going to include it, okay? I'm going to be kind to myself. And that was a book that is going to be the easiest to get to that midway point. So we are counting it for this progress. Then, at the end of last week, I kind of talked about 5 books that I'm currently most interested in. Both of these 2 books that I've just mentioned were in that list. A third book that I'm currently really focusing on is Disobedient by Elizabeth Fremantle. I am about 14% in at this point in time. I've been reading it every evening before bed, so I'll probably continue doing so. I might have to chip in a little bit more than what I've been doing so far in order to get to that 50% mark, but I definitely expect that to be the third book. Fourth book is going to be determined by you guys. I have a poll up on my Discord at the moment. It will run until later this evening. When I last checked it, the Silver Blood Promise by James Logan was in front. That was the one that was going to be chosen. I expect that to still be chosen. That is a pretty lengthy book, so it is going to take a little bit out of me in order for me to be able to get that one to the 50% mark. And the fifth one, I think I'm going to leave in the unknown for the time being. I will just kind of pick up some things here and there throughout the week, and then in the weekend is when I'll decide which one will be the 5th book that I'm going to be focusing my attention on. And then aside from all of that, I also should be making some progress in The Waking Fire by Anthony Ryan. This is a book I haven't started yet. It's a book that's not on my physical TBR, but it is a book that is on my August TBR because it is my read-along book for the There Be Dragons read-along for the month of August. So I need to get started with it, and it's a humongous book, so it is really giving me some level of anxiety about the doability of this project. But so, it is Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock is upon us, and that is when Barbara will be starting her sprints. And so I'm going to be picking a book that I'm going to be tackling throughout her sprints. I probably am, for all sprints that I'm following in these projects, I'm probably just be switching from one book to the other every single time that a new timer is placed there. And I think I want to be starting the first one with The Waking Fire, just so that I've started at least. I've made a start to it, and so that also will give me a little bit of a gauge as to how quickly I'm progressing into this book, how difficult it is for me to make progress here, because now all I can kind of do is guess and be intimidated by the size of this book. But who knows, maybe if I tackle a few pages in it, I'll realize that actually it's a book that I'm really interested in and a book that's going to be flying by, which would be ideal. And so rather than live in this insecurity for a little bit, let me just get this first few pages started and see what we are dealing with and how difficult we potentially are going to have, like how much of a difficult progress we're going to have with this book. Which, even if the beginning is difficult, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll have that experience with the entire book. It's very likely that at some point in time the book will flow more quickly, but it would also be nice to actually have it be an easy ride from the beginning. So that is what I'm going to be reading first. I think I'm going to be reading The Waking Fire in the first print. Probably switching over into the Phoenix Keeper, at least in one of those other sprints, and then I'll tackle Disobedience in a third sprint. And then, if I still have energy left at that point in time, I might also try and tackle a little bit of Gold by Raven Kennedy a little bit further into that as well. But so yeah, that is the plan for this evening. Let's see how it turns out. It is Wednesday evening. I very unfortunately thought it was Thursday earlier today, but I now know the reality. 2 more days of work. But so I have yesterday been reading in like the books that I mentioned to you guys. I don't think I've read anything else, but I have enjoyed the first beginning of The Waking Fire. Like it wasn't like the ideal start, I guess, because the first sort of like prologue is in like a report style, which is a little bit more difficult to like get invested in. But I do like that it has to do with like dragon bloods and people like who are blood blessed, I think it was referred to. They have the ability to like use dragon blood and that will enhance them somehow. And the others have like adverse effects when they ingest dragon blood. um so I read in the other books that I mentioned yesterday. I've been going along a little bit. I am now 50% into 2 books because on my commute to work today, I listened some more to the Saturday morning park run, and I also listened to that when I got home, and then like on the way home, and then when I got home, I decided that I was gonna quickly go into town and get a few things over there, including donuts, and I listened to the audiobooks some more over there, and that led me to like some 60%. And I'm really enjoying this one so much. So the Saturday morning park run is just like a wholesome contemporary read. So it's like about this powerhouse woman who's got like her job all in order. She is living alone, living for her job, definitely. And she has like, the perfect apartment all figured out. And she's just like working like crazy in order to make partner. And then on one of her morning commutes, she stumbles into a guy and spills coffee all down both of their shirts. And that's how they kind of first meet. Now, very early on, she is basically told by the doctor that she has to take things slowly, that she is suffering from stress, and that he is going to write her home. And as a consequence of that, this story unfurls. And I really, really enjoy it a whole ton. I enjoy the characters that we're meeting up with. I enjoy the writing style, the plot in general, what we're looking at. So now, as the title of course suggests, what they're looking at now is kind of the idea of kind of setting up a park run in their local park, And like everything about this is just really wholesome and fun and just like a perfect contemporary read. So I'm really enjoying that one. It's making going to work a little bit more of a positive, even because I get to listen to this book on my way there. Not that work is such a hassle, making it sound very dramatic, but yeah, it's definitely one of the main reasons why I'm looking forward to the next workday, is because at least I can listen to more of this book. But so I'm 60% into that, which means that maybe will still finish it this week. Probably not. I'll probably be like close to finishing it, but not exactly, because I'll have the commute tomorrow, and then on Friday we're actually going for pizza after work, and so I won't be taking the bike, but I will have the bus drive there, which will probably take about the same time as my bike ride does both directions normally, because after work, a friend of like one of my colleagues will drive me to Brussels for pizza and will drop me back off home, so I won't have that like second commute. But I think my first commute will be much longer by bus. So yeah, for tonight, the plan is, because I now have the poll results, and of course, you guys voted for the longest option that I gave you guys. So, you guys voted for the Silver Blood Promise. I did continue with another chapter in that yesterday evening, but it is a relatively long book, so one chapter didn't really make much of a progress in it. So, I'm like 5% in at this point in time. So, I definitely need to get a move on with that book in order to get there. So I think for tonight, my focus is mainly going to be on The Waking Fire and The Silver Blood Promise. 2 out of my 5 books are a go. I am 50% at them, and like the Ruins of Smoke will be pretty easy to get there. And then I'll just like be focusing on these two, and then just like continuing a little bit in Disobedience as well, which is the book that I've basically been reading in every single day since I first sampled it on Sunday, right? So yeah, that is going to be my plan for tonight. All right, guys, it is Saturday. It is already 12 o'clock, and I have not made any progress except for useless progress. Now, what do I mean when I talk about useless progress? With this goal, I've noticed that there is some counterproductivity, because the goal is to get 5 books to the 50% mark. However, if I'm beyond the 50% mark, every progress beyond that becomes counterproductive, because I'm spending time reading that doesn't contribute, like that can never contribute to this goal. It can contribute to next week's goal, of course, but for this week, this progress is like, yeah, I shouldn't be focusing on this book, even though I really, really want to continue in it, because I really need to be focusing on my other books. So today I have only been reading in Gold by Raven Kennedy, which I'm already beyond the 50% point, and the Saturday Morning Park Run, which I'm also already beyond the 50% point. So no productive progress made today, so we have to change that. No, actually, that's a lie. I think I read 7 pages in Ruins of Smoke, so I'm almost to the 50% mark there. I think I'm now at 45 for that, so that is definitely also getting done. Now, I asked some of you guys what progress you think I should have made before the start of the weekend to make my goal achievable. One person answered 75%. 75% of the way into the goal of, getting 5 books to 50%, which I'm not at. And then a more moderate, or like a better answer for me at least, was the 65% one, I think, that somebody gave, or 60. Don't really remember which one, but in any case, either way, I am beyond that. So I am like 70% into this goal. I have 2 books over 50%, as I just indicated. Then I have Ruins of Smoke, which is very close to being at the 50% mark. But then we get to the problem areas. Disobedience, I am 25% in, and the Silver Blood Promise, I am 18% in. it is already 12 o'clock. Yesterday, I went out with colleagues for pizzas in Brussels. I stayed longer than intended, so I took the train back rather than have my colleagues drive me back when they left. Which meant I was only back at 1 o'clock. And I've slept a long time to compensate for that. So it is already 12 o'clock. We have to get a move on. So is this goal still achievable? Maybe. I'm not discounting it, but it is going to take something. And the problem is as well that I'm also hesitating about whether I'm correctly fulfilling this goal, because did Natalie mean 5 books out of the books that I was currently reading at the end of last week, or 5 books that are part of my TBR0 project? Because the book that I'm the furthest along in, Saturday Morning Park Run, is actually not a book that I own or anything like that. It is a book on Storytel. And so if we are being the strictest as possible, I am nowhere near this goal at all, because then I cannot even count that 50%. So we are just going to try and get to the easier version of this goal. If by any miracle I then have time left to get another book to 50%, we can try that. But really, that's just so far out of reach, because so I said we have the 18% for the Silver Blood Promise. The next book, the closest next book in terms of its progress, is Kushiel's Mercy, which is at 12%. But I go through that book super slowly. So yeah, we have to go for the easier version here. We have to be kind to myself. Now for next week, I've also considered adding some elements to these vlogs. So I've also asked for some suggestions for activities, challenges, other goals. And I will be at some point in time during this weekend also like writing them down, turning them into these little, prompts that I can like pull from a jar, so that every week I pull like one activity prompt, for example, out of the jar. You can definitely nominate stuff in the description box here as well for the week after then. And I'll also be adding a lot of stuff in there. Like I have some suggestions from people over on my Discord, but I'll be adding a lot of stuff in there as well myself. And then I also think that I'm going to work with the idea of a benchmark, meaning a percentage that every book needs to be at by the end of the week. So I don't have one for this week because I just came up with this idea today. But by the end of next week, for example, I'll be putting a benchmark, which I think I'll put at 6%, meaning that all of the ongoing books have to be at 6% by the end of that week. Which, if I calculated correctly, means that like for 7 books or so, I need to make enough progress to get them to that benchmark, aside from the goal that I'll be pulling next week. So yeah, interesting. But it is definitely keeping me motivated. It is definitely keeping me reading. And I thought that I would be super overwhelmed by this project. But the project in itself also is making me super motivated and making me want to read. So it is a win-win on all counts. Hello, reporting in from the trusty couch. But so, it is Sunday morning. I am now 50% into 3 books. So we are closer to this goal. Yesterday I read a whole ton in the Silver Blood Promise, so I am over 40% into that one as well now. I think I need to read like 50 pages in that one today in order to get to the 50% mark there. And then in Disobedient by Elizabeth Fremantle, I'm a little bit further behind, but that book is also shorter, so I probably need around the same page count in that one as well. But I haven't done any reading yet. I'm going to go to my parents soon, so it's still going to be a little bit tight, I guess. But I thought that maybe now is the time to talk a little bit more about the Silver Blood Promise, because this is a pretty long book. I'm 40% in, so it seems like I can give you a decent opinion about this right now. So the Silver Blood Promise by James Logan is the first in a series, and we meet with this guy who's basically just like, getting by, like gambling and playing cards and stuff like that in bars to get money to survive another day. And then he is visited by a member of staff of his father's who informs him that his father has been murdered and that his father left like a note behind. And that note sets him off on a path. Now, if you're a trusty subscriber here, you know that I don't like murder mystery plots. And so this was the main reason why I was like thinking that I was stupid for buying this book. Why did I buy this book? Hello. It is a gorgeous. So this is absolutely a cover buy. There are, of course, just elements about the cover that also appeal to me, that also came into this choice, which is like it looks much more like Islamic in terms of the building style in there. And so it felt like would be a type of world building maybe that, I'm not typically seeing. And I will definitely say that I don't necessarily think that this reads very much like it is an Islamic building style or anything like that. But then I also am not the type of person who like transforms words into imagery. So it does have a lot of like spires and stuff like that, which maybe could be seen as being like a reference to like minarets and stuff like that. So maybe for somebody who is much more of a visual reader, that would definitely also pan out. But that's part of the intrigue for me here. And then so basically cover buy that I thought was potentially going to be a huge failure, but it isn't, because there is a very thin line with murder mystery plots that works for me. For example, what I really love is the movie Enola Holmes. And that one, I think, has some similarity with this one in that the sort of like murder mystery element to it, or like the detective element to it, is basically the thing that sets off an adventure. Like in Enola Holmes, yes, it's about gathering clues, and it will be about gathering clues in here. But in order to gather those clues, a lot of adventures take place. Whereas I feel like a lot of murder mystery that I dislike is like the murder mystery that just doesn't have a ton of action to it. And whereas the goal here is still trying to figure out who is the murderer, I feel like a lot of other things are happening that are interesting enough for me to focus on that rather on I don't care who killed his father, let's say let's say it like that. So if I felt like there was nothing else going on in the book, like there was nothing else that could interest me, then this would be another one of those, oh my god, it's a failure type of reads. But this is doing the murder mystery plot in combination with a plot that really works for me. So I'm really excited about this one. I really enjoyed this one. This one also so far already has had a trope that I really enjoy, which is like breaking into or stealing something from, or some sort of what are words? You have a high security facility and they somehow have to get into it or get something out of it or spend some time in there to gather information. And any of those varieties I really enjoy, and we have that in this book, which I'm really, really enjoying. And so we just had that sequence, which I really enjoyed. We also had a sequence that definitely felt like really somewhat gruesome, even though nothing is really happening. So yeah, I'm really been enjoying this one, and that means that the pages have also really been flying by. This is definitely the type of writing style that I enjoy, which is like writing as a tool for telling a story. I don't tend to enjoy overly written books. And this one is definitely not like that. I definitely wouldn't say like it's like it's so simple that is barely there. I think it's just well written in the style that I enjoy reading from. I don't enjoy using 20,000 words to say something you can say in 10 words. So yeah, let me get back to that one, and then hopefully I can still manage to reach this goal today. But I am going to go to my parents' place later on today to have lunch over there. So a few hours today are definitely going to be spent over there. So that's going to impact the probability of me finishing. Hey guys, so I am going to have to call it quits. I did not make week two's goal. So at this point in time, it is 8:30 on Sunday evening, but at this point in time, I'm going to have to say that I have made it to 50% in 4 books. I am 32% into the 5th book. I would need to read still some 60 pages or so into that book in order to get it to 50%, but I'm not going to be doing that. I think I've had more than enough reading for the weekend so far, and I could potentially like push it to the very last minute and make it, but I just don't think that that is going to be very agreeable, and that will also mean like I don't have any editing time anymore today, whereas I feel like I want to do some editing to get this video out on Tuesday and maybe still have time to edit another video later this week rather than having to like last minute edit on Monday evening, and that kind of, like potentially pushing my schedule off kilter. So I am still very proud of my progress so far. I did also finish a book as a consequence, like not really as a consequence, but I also finished a book. So I finished the Saturday morning park run. So this is not a book that was actually on my like TBR projects or anything like that, but it is the audiobook that I had going before I started this project. I really, really loved it a whole ton. I cried with the end of it, so I'm also very happy that I did make the decision that on my way back from my parents, so I was listening to this book and I got to the point where I just had like 40 minutes left and I was like, okay, let me just listen to the end of it, which was a good thing because I was really like crying at the very end of it. So I really enjoyed this book a whole ton. I'm going to go straight into the second book for my commute on Monday, but I definitely do think that these are just like companions. They don't really have a link to one another except for the fact that they're both set in Yorkshire and by the same author. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one a whole ton. I would definitely say like for any sort of parents out there, this definitely has a trigger of like it has a child having to do with rejection from a parent. And so I think that that could, like, it's triggering for me, and I'm not a parent. I can definitely see how if somebody is a parent and they were to read this, that could be like even more triggering. But I really, really enjoyed it a whole ton. It was a 5-star read. And so yeah, we're ending on a success. And so the Silverblood Promise, according to the story graph, I am not 50% in, but that is because it's counting like 608 pages for this edition, whereas mine ends on like 595 pages. So not a big difference, so not enough for me to be like, okay, let me create like a new edition for it on the story graph to get the correct page count. But so I also am not gonna like push through another chapter of it just to get to like what the story graph considers 50%. So I am 50% into that one. And yeah, that is going to be my progress for this week. I think now I'm just going to be editing a little bit more tonight, and then I'll also make that list of sort of like activities to include in my next vlog for it. And I also need to kind of think of what my goal should be, or maybe I should make like a list of potential goals and then kind of let fate decide what my goal is going to be for week 3, not this fate, but fate as in the cosmos or whatever. I do actually have my August book for my read along, The Waking Fire by Anthony Ryan, which I absolutely neglected throughout this week. So that one should also get much more attention now. Should probably be more or less my priority next week. But if I make that my priority, how am I going to get progress in my projects otherwise? So we'll have to have a think on that. But so yeah, if you've made it this far, definitely know what you thought of this. And, like, just wish me luck for the next one if you don't know what to comments aside from that. Have a lovely week, and I see you guys for the next one. Bye.